Hello and welcome to episode 253 of Rhythm and Wait.
Oh!
Wait a second.
Ooh, Freudian slip.
Maybe that was deliberate, because this is episode 253 of Retro Encounter, but we're here to celebrate Rhythm Encounter. Rhythm Encounter is RPG Fans' podcast about RPG game music that has been on hiatus since 2017, but we are bringing it back this year, September, in the year of our Lord 2020. And at the very beginning of this episode, I want to remind everyone, check out Rhythm Encounter, reopen that feed if you stopped listening 3 years ago like many of us, because it is coming back with episodes every 2 weeks until we decide to stop doing it again. But to celebrate Rhythm Encounter's return, both Retro Encounter and Random Encounter are doing special music episodes patterned like a Rhythm Encounter episode. And also, by a totally unrelated coincidence, September 2020 is Persona Month for Retro Encounter. You see where this is going, but before I continue, let's introduce the rest of the panel, starting with Hilary Andreff.
Hello.
And Peter Triezenberg.
Hello.
And Alana Hagues.
Hey,
So, Persona games usually star a party of four, so our party of four is going to go on our own journey to the shadow of our soul. We're doing an episode all about Persona music for Retro Encounter 253 to celebrate the relaunch of Rhythm Encounter. So, let's talk Persona a little bit. Starting with you, Peter, how did your Persona journey begin, and what's your overall, abridged thoughts on the music of Shoji Meguro and Persona?
So I got into Persona with Persona 3 on the PlayStation 2, the FES version. I think that was kind of the game that helped bring the series, again, give it a second wind over here in the West. And from there, I just kind of went on. I went back and played Nocturne. I played Persona 4, Persona 5, all that. And yeah, one of the most striking things about this series is its music. I think Meguro's style just really accentuates how these games are kind of modern and urban and youth centric, which is just really it's this very fitting soundscape for these stories.
You're right. Urban is a very appropriate adjective for Persona. We've mentioned this in other episodes, but every Persona game is basically some weird supernatural stuff is going down in this Japanese town, and the only people that can save it are these plucky misfit teenagers. And I think Meguro's music does reflect the urban city setting or small town setting of all the Persona games. I'll go next. I've told this story before. I tried playing Persona 1 after reading about it on RPG Fan and RP Gamer in the early 2000s. I was in high school. It was probably 02 or 03. I hated it. I sent it back. Then I played Persona 2 Eternal Punishment briefly because it was on sale for $20. I was in college. This was probably 06, 07 range. And I'm like, okay, this is better than Persona 1, but I still don't know what's going on at all. And I shelved it permanently. But then in the early 2010s, one of my friends said, Sollosi, you've told me your Persona story. You're wrong. Here's a copy of Persona 3. Play it. And yes, many of my friends also call me Sollosi. So I did, and a new obsession was born in me. I've played the bejesus out of Persona 3, 4, 5, and Q2, and others. It's one of my favorite series of RPGs, and Shoji Meguro's music is one of the pillars that holds up Persona so highly in my regard. It's really special. So, Alana, what are your early Persona thoughts and Persona music thoughts?
So I got into the series relatively late. It was around when the Persona 5 teaser dropped. I did try Persona 3 when it first came out on PS2 and just bounced off it immediately, probably because I was too stupid and too young and didn't understand what was going on. And I tried Nocturne at the same time as well. Persona is originally a spin-off of the Megami Tensei series, and a friend lent me both games, and I tried them both and was like, no, these are too hard for me. I don't like them. So yeah, I didn't come back until 2013, 2014. Got Vita and got Persona 4 Golden, and within the space of about 4 months, played Persona 4 and 3 back to back, and then picked up 5 and played it, and really loved them at the time and have varying degrees of emotions about them today. Currently playing through Persona 2. You might hear more about that eventually. But in terms, I think even though I'm mixed on certain things in these games, I think the music is the one thing I am consistently positive about. Probably worth noting, Shoji Meguro has not been the sole composer of the entire series. Persona 1 and Persona 2 have definitely had multiple composers working on them. And I know that Meguro worked on Revelations Persona on the PS1 anyway, but he definitely worked on the remakes on the PSP, and I just love how stylized they are. Like, Persona 3 leans on J-rap, Persona 4 is J-pop, and Persona 5 is rock and acid jazz, and there's something for every mood, I think, and I really love listening to them outside of the game. I love how varied they are, and Meguro's got such a cool sense of style that you can always tell it's his as well, even though that he changes up between games. So yeah, I mean, the music is probably my favorite part of these games consistently. And yeah, I'm ready to talk Persona music, I guess.
Yeah, Meguro was not the composer on the first 3 Persona games, but he was the overall production supervisor or director on all the PSP remakes. So his musical imprint is on all of them for sure. And he wasn't the sole composer of the later ones either. Atsushi Kitajo did several tracks on Persona 4 and 5 and was the supervisor for Persona Q and I think also the Persona 4 Arena games. So it's not only Meguro that we're going to be discussing here exactly, but I mean, just like you think Final Fantasy, you think Uematsu, you think Persona, you think Meguro. I think is at least a fair oversimplification.
I think it is, especially because he's got such a recognizable musical signature, as you guys have said.
And Hilary, as we have said, now it's your turn. What's your personal Persona journey, and what are your abridged thoughts on its music?
I talked about this a little bit on our recent Villains podcast, but I started with 4. I was visiting some friends in North Dakota, where there wasn't much to do, so we started on 4. I got hooked pretty immediately, and I would say the way the music kind of pairs with the environments and the characters to create this really cool atmosphere is definitely one of the main draws of the series for me. So I played that, and then I went back and played 3 and Eternal Punishment and 5. And I would say I've enjoyed them all, to varying degrees, but pretty positive overall. And yeah, the music, I mean, there's some fun experimentation with genre going on based on the game, kind of like how the different games have a color. I kind of feel like the music in the games has a slightly different style. So yeah, just excited to get into it and talk about all the different music that we found.
All right, now speaking of getting into it, let's do exactly that. We've divided our Persona discussion into 4 blocks. Each block is going to have 2 songs, so like our sort of concept for new Rhythm Encounter, we're going to have sort of 8 songs per episode, just to keep the episode's length and editing duties at a reasonable extent. So our first block is 2 songs from Persona 2, and Alana and Hilary chose these. So Alana, what's your first track?
Sure. So to kick things off, I've picked up the very interestingly titled Boss Battle. This is the Persona 2 Innocent Sin PSP version. It plays in most of the boss fights in the game, and it's really rocking, so excited to talk about it.
And Hilary, what's your first selection?
I have chosen the equally excitingly titled Map 1 from Eternal Punishment, the PSP. So we are going to cruise through the city at night with that one, and it plays pretty early on in the game while you're on the map.
Okay, so for our first block, we have Boss Battle and Map 1 from the Persona 2 PSP duology. And we're back. That was Boss Battle from Persona 2 Innocent Sin PSP and Map 1 from Persona 2 Eternal Punishment PSP. So, Alana, how about that boss battle?
Oh, it's so good. I made a point of listening to the original and the PSP versions back to back, and the PSP version's so good. I love the way it changes 3 times. I think my favorite thing about it is just how, I don't know, it's jamming is the only word I can think to describe it, and I feel like that's a word or a theme that will come up a lot in this episode, because so much Persona music is just so easy to bop to, or to dance to, or to hum or sing, and it's great. And this feels Persona-y, but it also feels a little bit SMT, and it kind of hints towards that shift between, Revelations Persona being the spin-off and Persona slowly becoming its own thing and stylistically. But yeah, I think my favorite thing about this is really the guitar solo right towards the end of the first loop, and there's like not a lot I can say about this track, because I think it's so simple in the way that it shifts and a way that it just moves through, and I'm like, I don't know, I just love this track, and hearing it in game is even better. And I think the normal battle theme is really good as well. It uses the same kind of synth start that this does as well, so yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear what everybody else thinks, because I'm just like, I love this, but I don't have too much to say about it personally.
Yeah, Persona 2 is, I should say Persona in general is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, and to a degree I think Persona 1 and 2 is kind of a bridge between what SMT is and what Persona eventually became. And there's more old SMT in Persona 2 than in, say, Persona 3, 4, 5. And like that, this track is kind of a bridge in a similar way, because Shin Megami Tensei's music, or at least me thinking of Nocturne and Digital Devil Saga, is much more rock industrial than what later Persona is. And this is a bridge. It has that sort of 4 on the floor backbeat, forward momentum, danceable, like Alana said, and we'll talk about some specifically danceable Persona tracks much later. Trust me on this one. But also is much crunchier than like the smoother parts of the Persona 2 soundtrack. And yet it has multiple phases. It's not just a 2-minute loop. It's like I have to check the YouTube link, but it's like a 4-minute loop that goes through multiple changes. It's a really, really good boss track.
Feels like an actual like rock song, like where you'll have the same melody, but it builds up over time.
And you have like the interlude with the guitar solo. Yeah, you have to appreciate the way it goes hard and doesn't stop the entire time.
Oh man, more boss battles, please. Have a guitar solo.
Oh, please, yeah. I think dirty and grungy is a really good way to describe it. Like, there's weirdly no other boss theme that sounds like it in Persona, which is really strange. Like, this feels like it's not even. Yeah, it's really unique, but for how familiar it sounds to me. Like, this is kind of the music I grew up listening to, I suppose. And
I think, like, on the continuum of Atlas music, it might nudge closer to a Digital Devil Saga or a Nocturne.
This would not be out of place. It honestly reminded me of SMT4's boss theme a bit.
It does.
I don't know SMT4. That's a personal failing of mine. Because I played a lot of RPGs in the 3DS.
It's good, and the music in that game is really good. But it's also goes for that like hard industrial and kind of like moody ambiance in its soundtrack a lot. And I think the Persona 2 tracks, both of the ones we discussed, fit that vibe very well.
Yeah, both soundtracks are like that in their entirety, I would say. They're much more atmospheric, and generally Persona 2, from what I've played so far, is a way more atmospheric game than 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, so I think that's really well mirrored in the music.
Persona 3, 4, and 5 go a little bit more almost the Mega Man route of trying to have a melody and a bop, to each track. But Persona 2 goes for sort of atmosphere over writing the entire thing on a melody, which I think is something that is a bit of an Uematsu thing. Like old Final Fantasy, every song is completely forcing a melody on you, and Persona 2 and other sort of earlier Atlas soundtracks aren't that way.
Yeah, I'd say that's another part of the bridge we're describing here, is that transition.
But Alana, you brought up guitar solos. And I don't know, guitar solos are something that I absolutely adore in the 80s and 90s, and decided maybe all music doesn't need guitar solos in the 2000s, but then it comes roaring back when I hear guitar solos in these games, because our other Persona 2 track also has a dope guitar solo in it. Hilary, let's talk about Map 1 from Persona 2 Eternal Punishment.
Yeah, of course. So this caught my ear early on in the game. Mostly, I sort of described this, but mostly because of how evocative it was of the setting. I think I can just really picture driving through a city at night. And I was talking about this track recently, and I described it as there's one repeated note that you hear at the beginning, sort of like as a backdrop, that do, do, do. Yeah. And then it goes into the melody. And I could just picture, stopping and going at traffic lights between those two sections. That's one reason I picked it, but also because I think it also demonstrates a little bit of the playing around with the genre and a little bit of the shift toward melodies. And yes, it also has a good guitar solo.
I love that guitar solo in the middle, and it's more of a blues guitar solo than a straight up butt rock guitar solo like in the boss battle theme. Yeah, like I support more R&B and blues guitar and other sounds in general in my RPG music. Persona 6, go back to 90s R&B. Just a small suggestion.
Yes, I think that's one of the most fun things. Like when I've done music reviews for RPG Fan, I usually do kind of more genre-related ones. Like I've done a couple jazz. I'm working on a Celtic one, so please, more experimenting with genre and RPG soundtracks.
Yeah, I'm really picky with like real music and genre, but like I tend to find that like I'm not really a fan of R&B, but I love it in video game music, and I love how they utilize it with characters, and this is a really cool one. It's so chill. Like the map themes in Persona 2, Innocent Sin, and Eternal Punishment are both so chill. And from what I know about Eternal Punishment and comparing it to the Innocent Sin music, like it's played at night, I'm assuming, and it sounds way more ethereal, which fits Eternal Punishment, given that I believe it's an alternate version or world.
The idea is that, there's a little bit of like parallel alternate world plot going on. And one of the other main premises is rumors.
Yes.
Yeah, they're one of the main kind of mysteries you're trying to figure out as you go through Eternal Punishment is there is a curse where rumors apparently come true if you spread them enough, and that's a mechanic you can actually use to your advantage as you progress.
Yeah, that's true of both Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment, and most of the conflict in both games, or well, more so Innocent Sin. Persona Eternal Punishment has other things in the conflict. Innocent Sin, a lot of it is there's a curse where that, and if enough people hear a rumor, it becomes true, and then things get out of hand. Okay, this is going to bring it all together. Map 1, R&B, and the idea of changing things with rumors. The ending credits song to Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is called Change Your Way. It's written by an American R&B artist named Alicia Laverne, and it was made for Persona 2, and you can listen to it on it's I don't think it's in the American version of the game, but it's the end credits in the Japanese version of the game, and it's included in one of Alicia Laverne's personal albums, but like not the main soundtrack album. It's a little confusing, but it's a really cool song, and a motif from it appears in Map 1. It's the first line goes, "You can go where you wanna go," and they sort of do. Yep, exactly, and that is a recurring motif in multiple tracks in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, including Map 1. And also the lyrics of the song are, you can change the way you live, you can forget the past, like try to change yourself, kind of like that is not maybe an on-the-nose metaphor for what happens in Eternal Punishment, but it's related. Going back to 90s R&B, these games are 99 and 2000. There is some R&B influence in the soundtrack, partially because they're games of their time, and they have literally an American-produced 90s R&B song for their end credits.
It's really different. Like, up until that point, you've got Eyes on Me, the Tales of openings, Melodies of Life. They're all ballads, and this is really cool. Like, the ending credits for Eternal Punishment I really love it, and I love how it's utilized in this map theme as well, like you've both said.
Like, I mean, I think of the music with lyrics from like the Lunar games and Tales of
Right.
Fantasia, and it's all either ballads or J-pop, and none of them are like Change Your Way. And I mean, there aren't really any games like Persona 2.
That's true.
But all right, we had a block of all Persona 2, and we're going to move on to a block that's all Persona 3. So Peter, let's talk about the first game you're introducing for this episode.
So my pick for Persona 3 is Tartarus Floor 1, the song when we first step foot into the darkened halls of Tartarus.
And Hilary, what is your second selection for the podcast?
I made this pick because I was really shocked that this has not been somewhere on Rhythm before. My pick is the one, the only, Mass Destruction.
I share your shock, Hilary, and now listeners, we share these two tracks with you, Tartarus Floor 1 and Mass Destruction, both from Persona 3.
reality, never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Damn right, mommy's not here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, destroy the nation. You rhyme slow motion, give me motivation. Breathe out now, and then I'm a rival. Round up around, spit out, all over. Rhyme like a rolling stone, come in the crowd. Watch out the moon, they diss you out. This was this sound, and bombs whole ground. So round up, don't ease your pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one world, one love. But the battle goes on, shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby, down, 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 down. Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby, down, 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 down. Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby, down, 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 down. Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby.
Reality, never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Damn right, mommy's not here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, destroy the nation. You rhyme slow motion, give me motivation. Breathe out now, and then I'm a rival. Round up around, spit out, all over. Rhyme like a rolling stone, come in the crowd. Watch out the moon, they diss you out. This was this sound, and bombs whole ground. So round up, don't ease your pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one world, one love. But the battle goes on, shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby, down, 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 down. Oh yeah, down, 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 baby, baby.
reality, never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Damn right, mommy's not here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, destroy the nation. You rhyme slow motion, give me motivation.
And welcome back, listeners. That was our second block of tracks, Tartarus Floor 1 Thebel block from Persona 3, and also from Persona 3, the original version of Mass Destruction. So, Peter, let's talk about maybe the most minimalist track of the whole episode, but definitely a jam. We're going to use the word jam over under 40 times this episode.
Yeah, pretty much. All the Tartarus tracks, as you go up the Tartarus Tower, progressively more layered and build upon each other. And I think that's really interesting. But the first one is my favorite just because, again, like you said, it's so minimalist. It's just that bass and that soft piano kind of playing in the background. It's super ominous and dark and really sets this oppressive atmosphere for your dark hour dungeon runs that I think it's just such a great introduction to what your main gameplay loop's going to be like.
I love it how it really sets the mood for Tartarus. It lets you know what you're in for, but also because it's so minimalist suggests that things are going to get possibly a lot worse and more interesting and layered in Tartarus, as well as with the music. And also I love like the scratchy crunchiness of the background. It's really neat how they made that sound ominous.
Ominous is a good adjective for this one. It's It's almost like a horror movie where it's deliberately low key, so just to make things, to give you an idea that something very scary could appear very quickly. And my favorite thing about this track is definitely the low bass.
Yeah, I love it.
That's like almost like a heartbeat, or like the feeling that the Jaws shark is going to appear.
Or death.
Yeah, right. or literally death who wields dual shotguns and a lot of chains. Or are they rifles?
Yeah,
I'm not. Maybe they're just giant carbines or something. I'd have to look at an image to get the gun properly. But yeah, when this basically quiet track is sometimes punctuated by like the weird growl of a shadow or the chains of the special boss Death chasing you down. Gives a slight horror vibe, but it is a very cool track on its own, especially for that echoing piano and bass drum.
Yeah, I really love the piano coming in, and actually, it's probably worth saying, like, Tartarus is your school, transformed into this massive tower, and this place in Thebel block, I think, and Thebel is a Hebrew word for confusion, and it definitely evokes that sense of anxiety when you walk into your school, and all of a sudden, there are personas and death walking around, and it definitely captures that like unsettling tone. And I love how like the higher floors build up the instrumentation. Some of them change it up as well. Like I think third block in particular, like second block adds an extra instrument and then third block removes it and slows it down. And it's really interesting how like the entire tower plays around with that a little bit. But like Thebel block in particular is a really nice way to set up, because Persona 3, it feels like the middle of a transition, and like musically and stylist, like in themes, because it is one of the darker ones, but it's like that move towards, Japanese rap music and more anime tropes and stylized characters and things. And
living your daily life.
Exactly, yeah. Like this is one of the tracks I think you could probably hear in one of the older games as well. It's definitely got that undercurrent.
Yeah, it would not be out of place.
Yeah, I was really interested in why you picked first block actually, rather than one of the later ones. So I'm glad you did, because it's definitely really different.
It captures the eeriness of going to your school on a day off, like where there's no one but maybe custodial staff, or maybe seeing a teacher at the grocery store. So it's like there's something off and wrong about this. This school is supposed to be full of people, and you were supposed to be one of the people in the school.
Yeah, I still feel that anxiety now as an adult when I see a teacher in the grocery store. I'm like, ugh.
One of my elementary school teachers went to the same pool as me, and I never enjoyed seeing her, even though she was a perfectly nice lady. So, like, this is all wrong. But speaking of things unexpected, I mean, Mass Destruction fits what Persona 3 is, but before I heard it for the first time, it's not the kind of music I would associate being in a Japanese RPG. So let's go into maybe the most iconic song in Persona 3.
Yeah, it definitely isn't, and I didn't mention this before, but it's one of the regular battle tracks, which is also interesting because you hear it a lot. But also, yeah, there's a lot of unexpected stuff going on with the vocals, the horns. I love the horns. And, of course, Lotus Juice, which we can't have this Persona music podcast without mentioning him, because he does a lot of lyrics and a lot of rapping on various Persona games. So I had to bring him into it. And I particularly like his work on Persona 3. So
yeah, he's a motor mouth. He raps quickly in fairly clear English that is still a little bit of the, slightly absurd Japanese use of English that you'll see mocked on the internet often. But he has real rhythm and flow that gives Mass Destruction a distinctly, like hip-hop flavor to it that is, again, so unexpected in an RPG for me. And just the intro, baby, 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 is also distinct. Like, I mean, and
Yep.
Persona 3 is a 70-plus hour game, so maybe you wish there were a few dozen less babies over the course of the game. But it's
never.
Sometimes I
All of the babies.
don't know. Sometimes I don't want 400 babies. Is all I'm saying. But it's such a unique track
Yeah.
that is become one of the signature Persona tracks, I think. And and to this day, Lotus Juice is just delightful. He also does tracks on the remake of Persona 2 Innocent Sin and one or maybe both of the Persona 4 Arena games and both of the both Persona Qs. He's become a Persona staple that is very welcome. Like what Persona fan doesn't like Lotus Juice? You're not a Persona fan then.
And, it took a lot to not start this section with the baby, 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 too. So
I admire all of our collective restraint.
Yeah, it was hard. I just can't match that speed. That's why.
And also, this is the original version of Mass Destruction, but this is one of the most remixed Persona tracks ever. There's a new version in the Reincarnation album. There's a movie version that I really like that has sort of a longer intro. In the music games and in the dance remix album of Persona 3 and 4. It gets a new Mass Destruction gets a new version in Persona Fes when you play the Answer chapter starring Hagues, which I don't know, that's not my favorite Persona story, but at least it has a good version of Mass Destruction in it. But this is the original, and maybe because of its uniqueness and those several babies, it's become iconic.
Yeah, that FES version at least takes out the babies at the beginning. I think it starts off with the trumpets and the horns, doesn't it? Rather, I might be misremembering.
No, you're right. It starts with the ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da.
That's
like,
it.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like battle themes, you said it was like really unique. But it doesn't, like, battle themes for me are either moody or uplifting, and this is neither of them. Like, it doesn't really fit into a box, which I think is really interesting. And the lyrics kind of mirror the situation. Like, it talks about shadows at 10 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, I know the dark hour is like midnight, isn't it? But it still fits, kind of.
When you're listening to Persona 3 podcast, every hour can be the dark hour.
It sure can.
It just kind of fits the... Well, we mentioned like the urban style of the Persona music. I think the rap like that they use in Mass Destruction and in Burn My Dread are just very, very effective songs that convey the themes of the story while in a very unique way. Like it's such a bizarre song, but it's also like it somehow fits perfectly. Like it just kind of it belongs there. There's a new song called Wiping All Out if you're playing as the female protagonist in Persona 3 Portable. That's also a very good song, but it does lack a certain amount of baby.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on different versions of songs depending on which protagonist you're using.
Mm-hmm.
This next block is going to be one track from Persona 4 and one track from Persona Q. First is my first selection for the podcast, Heaven from Persona 4. And second, we have Peter's second selection for the podcast, Light the Fire Up in the Night, Sound of the Labyrinth version, Dark Hour arrangement.
So Light the Fire Up in the Night is a song from Persona Q. a crossover game on the DS. This is a arranged remix of the Persona 3 version of that song that is included on the Sound of the Labyrinth arrangement CD.
All right, so let's move on to our third music block, Heaven from Persona 4 and Light the Fire Up in the Night, a specific version of it from Persona Q, Shadow of the Labyrinth.
Can't get my mind out of those memories. Now time to tell them, don't take my dream. Still music keeps on tuning me from the worlds that hurt my soul, removing that from my mind. Those long days passing by from the door, like late summer days slowly fade away, finding way through the favorite tune, playing all day with my eyes closed. Those long days passing by from the door, like late summer days slowly fade away, finding way through the favorite tune, filling me with those sounds. Can't get my mind out of those memories. Now time to tell them, don't take my dream. Still music keeps on tuning me from the worlds that hurt my soul, removing that from my mind. Those long days passing by from the door, like late summer days slowly fade away, finding way through the favorite tune, playing all day with my eyes closed. Those long days passing by from the door, like late summer days slowly fade away, finding way through the favorite tune, filling me with those sounds.
Don't you see that it didn't give you a chance just to listen? Only wanted out, but you just get that garbage talk. So many lessons. You're looking present, I'm already futuristic. Cruising satisfaction, kill me a bit. Curiosity brings me back and grooving. Don't wanna follow water, restore that order, crossing the border. Next corner, posing for reporters. Next level explorer with my crew supporters. Take up what's the forward with my crew.
Like the shiny stars, like the past whenever it's turned. You keep on blinking at me. You never turn away from me. In this past gloomy night sky, like the fire up in the night. The journey that we travel for our prize. No matter where we go, we will not stop the shining forever.
keep it tested.
Like the shining stars, like the path whenever it's earned. You keep on blinking at me. You never turn away from me. In this past through me, night sky, like the fire up in the night. The journey that we travel for our prize. No matter where we go, we will not stop the shining forever.
Fuse got a seize now flat, more like panorama, more do it, more war, but drama, going gorillas, bananas. I just wanna have a lot of fun and less surviving, no riding, no driving, no rattling, battling, battling. Fuse got a seize now flat, more like panorama, more do it, more war, but drama, going gorillas, bananas. I just wanna have a lot of fun and less surviving, no riding, no driving, no rattling, battling. I keep it testing.
And we're back from heaven, because the first track in that previous block was Heaven from Persona 4. Now, at the risk of our listeners not playing Persona 4, I'm going to avoid discussing all the context, but this music plays in a dungeon themed around the sort of an innocent idea of what heaven or the afterlife is. It's very serene. It's not a slow song necessarily, but it's a ballad that sort of, when it goes into the chorus, gets a little bit more upbeat, but is held on by some just really beautiful bass, violin, and percussion that I really, really like. There's a bunch of different arrangements of Heaven, but the original is my favorite because I think it strikes the best balance of being sort of mellow and melancholy most of the time, but then almost like an upbeat lounge singer kind of song for its middle segments. It's one of my favorite Persona tracks.
Yeah, same here. And I think the positivity in the lyrics as well, but the way she sings them, the lyricist, the way she sings it, it's not like a particularly poppy, upbeat one, but the lyrics are really positive and makes sense given that you said it was an innocent version of heaven. And, the dungeons in Persona will take different themes depending on what character they're based on. And this definitely stands out because all of the others are very, very dungeony music. This is very unique, and even again in the whole series, in that it's just got such a different tone and balance to it.
It's a unique dungeon too, because like you said, the music, same thing with the themes of the dungeons in the game. You're used to going into the spoiler TV world and seeing really dark places, very threatening atmospheres, and this is the opposite, even though there are still shadows around.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like all these other dungeons are like the people's shadow selves or dark selves, and this is a character who's trying to uplift themselves in a way. I'm probably twisting the message slightly, but they're trying to create a positive world in their mind because they're so scared.
I don't want to spoil this song's context, but the song in with more context is even more heartbreaking, putting it all together. It's Shihoko Hirata is the Persona 4 vocalist, Yumi Kawamura is the Persona 3 vocalist. I mean, both of them are very talented ladies, and Shihoko Hirata just is this is lower pitched and slower and more serene than most of Persona 4's music, because Persona 4 is very pop influenced, and especially just the songs around town and even the battle themes are way more upbeat and bouncy than this song. Heaven, the song, the dungeon's also called Heaven, is very fitting, both for the vibe of the game and the vibe of the dungeon, but it feels a little unusual or off because, compared to the rest of Persona 4. But it's really beautiful. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but it's a personal favorite.
And I really like how that's reflected in the lyrics. We mentioned that a little bit, but it has, if you listen to the lyrics, it has really bright, positive lyrics in a lot of spots, but the actual melody and the way it's sung are both loungy and slower than a lot of the other tracks. So it's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, I mean, I use the word lounge. I wonder if it's supposed to be an Enka song, maybe? But let's move on to another track. And Alana, we were talking about the differences between Yumi Kawamura and Shihoko Hirata. This is a Yumi Kawamura vocal track. Peter, let's talk about Light the Fire Up in the Night, Dark Hour version, Sound of the Labyrinth arrangement.
Yeah, right? That's not a mouthful at all. Okay, so confession time. I've actually not played Persona Q.
Ah, so that's why you said it was a DS game and not a 3DS game.
Oh, did I say that?
Yeah.
Oops. But I haven't played the game. I'm curious. I like dumb crossover stuff as much as the next guy. Persona Q, the first one, is a crossover between 3 and 4 in the style of Etrian Odyssey, which is another Atlas series of first-person dungeon crawlers. So it's a very interesting blend of different Atlas tropes and genres, and it's got the fun little fan fantasy of having your favorite characters interact. What is neat about Light the Fire Up in the Night, this is one of the battle themes, is that it has a different version in-game based on the Persona 3 cast and one based on the Persona 4 cast, and they brought back their respective musicians to do the songs. So Lotus Juice is on the 3 one, and the lady, what was her name again? Sorry.
All right, to clarify it a little bit, I'm a bit of a Persona Q obsessive. I've played both of them. Lotus Juice is on both versions.
Okay.
Yumi Kawamura is on the Persona 3 version, and Shihoko Hirata is on the Persona 4 version. The P3 version has some more guitar and is a little bit lower, and the P4 version has more horns and is a little brighter.
Yeah, so it fits their musical styles very well. This arrangement is on the Sound of the Labyrinth arrangement CD, which I believe came with first print copies of the game. Tell me. Okay, and it's based on the Persona 3 version of the song, hence the Dark Hour in the title. But I really like this song, man. This might be one of my favorite Persona battle themes because it's such a bop.
Right, yeah. I love the horns in this so much. It's so punchy, and it reminds me of the horns in Mass Destruction, actually. So I'm really interested to know that there's more horns in the Persona 4 version, but then when you think of some of the cutscene music in Persona 4, there's a lot of horn in there as well. But yeah, it's again that return to the rock style, isn't it? And yeah, and it's got a bit of the Persona 3 rock, a bit of the Persona 4 rock as well. The main battle themes of Persona 4 are kind of twisted in here, and so it's this blend of everything, like Persona Q is the blend of the modern Persona styles all in one pocket, and it feels like a good way of summarizing, this is Persona Q. I'm glad it's an arranged version, because actually Persona Q has a turn-based battle system, and I'm this is a little punchy for that, but it definitely fits as a rearranged version.
Punchy's a good word for it, because just how rapid fire the lyrics are before the main chorus kicks in, and even then the main chorus is super upbeat and rock anthem-y in a way. But yeah, it is really you put the Persona 3 soundtrack and the Persona 4 soundtrack into a blender and hit puree.
In a lot of ways, the Persona Q games are fan service games. I'm not going to call the stories of either of them particularly deep or interesting, but just having these large casts interact in a lighthearted manner is great. The dungeon crawling itself and the battle system itself is moderately deep and fun. I enjoy these games. This is coming from a positive angle, but musically, the amount of fan service is stunning, because you have these two versions of a really good song that's strong on its own, but with different versions applying to Persona 3 or Persona 4 depending on which protagonist is in your party. And in Persona Q2, the Persona 5 cast joins and the Persona 3 female protagonist joins, and each of them gets their own battle song. And in-game, you can even program which one plays in different situations or randomly switches, and you can download almost every Persona battle track from 3, 4, and 5, and it's paid DLC, but it's at least worth considering. So, like, you could have potentially a dozen Persona battle tracks on shuffle for Persona Q2 without any with only just a few DLC dollars. As fan service, musical fan service, Persona Q and Q2 are maybe peak Persona, and this version of Light the Fire Up in the Night is so dope. It's a little bit busier than the original version. Like, it feels like there's more guitar, and it definitely has more of a beginning and end than the the version in game designed to be looped. It's real good. Yumi Kawamura, another very talented Persona lyricist. We're going to talk about. Singer. We're going to talk about a third one very soon. Yeah, you picked a slightly uncommon but very dope arrangement of a really fun battle track, Peter.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to get some variety in there. Honestly, from the way you describe Persona Q, it kind of reminds me of Dissidia in a way. Where it's like, this isn't a particularly deep and meaningful story or anything, but you're going to get your favorite characters interacting and cracking jokes, and it's kind of hilarious.
I don't think the story is particularly deep, but it has enough breadcrumbs for me to keep following it and just continue to enjoy the solid dungeon crawling and excellent music in both of those games. Neither of them are lightweights. They're both 60 hours at least.
I'll have to hunt them down at some point, because I've kind of been trying to fill in my 3DS collection. I think Persona Q2 must have had an incredibly limited release, because I was looking at Amazon listings and it was like 80.
I think they did put a little bit less money into that one, because Persona Q1 has a full English voice track and Persona Q2 doesn't. It's a Japanese with subtitles only.
Yeah, which by that point, it's not. I can't say I'm too surprised, considering by that point we were well into the Switch's lifetime. And Persona
Q1 has several replacement voice actors in it. It's one of the ones where Matt Mercer voices Kanji. But I think we might be ready for our next discussion. We are, again, very predictably, if the first three were 2, 3, and 4, the next block is going to include some Persona 5. So, Alana, let's talk about your first selection, Beneath the Mask.
Yeah, so this is one of the main overworld themes for Persona 5. Enjoy.
And for my second selection, I went into spin-off territory. This is the Taku Takahashi remix of Last Surprise. Last Surprise is the Persona 5 battle theme, but this version appears in Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. So here we are, Beneath the Mask and Last Surprise Taku Takahashi remix.
A mirror right in front of me. That's where I found an empty glass, reflecting that's a tree. It's telling words not to be told. I need that mask. I'm a shapeshifter at this masquerade, heart in both face and mind, all free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter, chained down to my core. Please don't take off my mask, my place to hide. I can't tell you how to see me. Just a cage of bones. There's nothing inside. Will it always be burning down the walls? Is there a way for me to break? I'm a shapeshifter at post masquerade, heart in both face and mind, all free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter, have no face to show. Please don't take off my mask, my disguise.
And we're back. That was Beneath the Mask from Persona 5 and Last Surprise Taku Takahashi remix from Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. One of those intros was much shorter than the other. But, Alana, let's talk about Beneath the Mask, and this is the original version, not the It's Raining Outside version, right?
Right, yeah, so this is the version which has the bass and everything, and I love this. This is one of the first tracks I heard from Persona 5 before the game came out, and I was really surprised because a lot of the overworld themes in Persona, modern ones particularly, are a lot more upbeat. I mean, Iwatodai Station and When the Moon Hits the Sky and, oh god, all the ones from Persona 4 are a lot more upbeat. And this one's a lot more chill. This plays particularly around the area of LeBlanc coffee and curry, so I always associate this with coming home and Sojiro Sakura, who is secretly the best character in Persona 5, going, you're back. And I just have this really warm feeling of sitting down, making coffee, getting together with friends and that, and hanging out. And it's got that really nice, chill jazz vibe that the whole soundtrack carries through. I think I love the lyrics in particular. And this is going to sound really cheesy because I'm a pretty introspective person. And I feel like this song speaks to me a lot on a certain level.
Interesting because Persona as a series puts a lot of emphasis on introspection, but you don't get a lot of those more like down-tempo introspective tunes, and this is a great one. I mean, just give me that coffee and curry and let me unwind.
Yeah, and I think in particular Persona 5 is about, I mean, all Persona games, like, their shadows and their persona are their true selves, basically. They're part of their psyche, literally, and this song is basically about, hey, take your mask off and reveal your true self, essentially. And I found it really interesting a while ago because obviously there's a line in there about Poe's Masquerade, which is about it's a reference to a short story by Edgar Allan Poe called The Mask of Red Death.
Yeah, there's a really good movie version of that directed by Roger Corman that's worth checking out.
Yeah, okay. And then also I found out that the Velvet Room is also based on that same book. So the origin of the Velvet Room is based on The Mask of Red Death, so it's definitely worth having a look into. But yeah, I love the lyrics and I love how it all ties together. The Rain version is even more chill because it literally only is the do 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 the whole way through, no bass and no percussion. I know a lot of people are not as fond of this as many of the other overworld tracks because it does play a lot, but I think it's a really nice contrast to how grungy and dark and upbeat and poppy and jazzy the rest of the soundtrack is. Like, you know, Persona 5 goes hard when it wants to, and then it goes really chill when it wants to, but it's not very often, I think. There's definitely more of a rebellion feel in this game, and this is like one of those tracks that kind of pulls that out and is a bit more like, right, chill out, have some coffee, and
I need a break from my rebellion and toppling the existing hierarchy.
I need a break from Arsène Lupin.
Honestly, it is a very appropriate song for a coffee house. Like, this is like just kind of that chill hop type song. I've totally not listened to this for an hour loop.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've listened to it in coffee shops and everything while I'm doing work. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still focused on your Mask of the Red Death reference because in the earlier Persona games, a masked man named Philemon is sort of the proprietor of the Velvet Room, and he wears a mask, and I have a lot of thoughts now. But but speaking of Beneath the Mask, I mean, exposes is the wrong word, but it sort of exposes the player to important Persona themes in its lyrics, but is also just so low key. And I think we mentioned an hour ago on the podcast that acid jazz is an inspiration for Persona 5, and when I think of acid jazz, I think of just the really sick bass lines and Jamiroquai songs.
Yeah.
Like Runaway has maybe my favorite bass line of any pop song
so
ever.
Good.
Yeah, oh god, I love that bass. But there's a lot of great bass in Persona 5, and that even sort of takes the melody sometimes. I'm thinking of, I forget the name of it, but the song that plays during test taking days has just a great bass line. But yeah, the bass and electric piano in Beneath the Mask and other tracks create a soundscape that can switch between chill and active so easily, and Beneath the Mask is one of the best versions of like the chill half of Persona 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the lyrics are lovely, and the lyricist of Persona 5, Lynn, is, oh my god, I've never heard that much soul out of a Japanese singer in my entire life.
She's
And
incredible.
she's a great like through line in the soundtrack as well.
Yeah.
And she gets a song. I think she gets 2 songs alongside the other Persona 3 Persona 3 and 4 vocalists in Persona Q2. But Lynn is a tremendous vocalist, and I think because of Lynn's presence, I like this version of Beneath the Mask more. But there is something nice about the instrumental version with rain, with the sound of rain going in the background. There's a value in that, but yeah, this is the better version of a really, really cool, chill overworld song.
Right, yeah, I agree. Should we go on to yours then?
Sure.
Which
This
Lynn
is
definitely makes an appearance again.
Considerably less chill, though. Now, before I talk about the Persona 5 dancing in Starlight, or any of the Persona dancing games in general, I sort of always recommend that you play the game first or listen to the original version of the songs first, because if you hear the Persona dancing version first, you'll think, like, what the hell is going on here? Because all of them are extremely upbeat, electronica, 4 on the floor arrangements, because they all need to be danceable to a degree. And Last Surprise is the main battle theme in Persona 5. It has a lot of really cool strings and horns in it. I love all of the like string quartet counter melodies in Persona 5. How the strings will sort of not be the main melody, but will drop out with really staccato, dramatic entrances and exits. And Last Surprise is a good version of that.
Yeah, it's right at the beginning. You have the
yep. And the really in Rivers in the Desert, the dung 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 dung, like the super dramatic strings in a lot of Persona 5 music. But in this version of Last Surprise, they add acoustic guitar, add a really fancy set of percussion, and some electronic chimes, like the bing bong, like almost like electronic sounding chimes, just to make this version of Last Surprise as poppy and upbeat as possible. And it's a futaba song in the game. In the game, there's always a main dancer for every song, and sometimes it's a group dance or a music video or something. But this is a futaba dance, so her very quirky, cute dancing to this version of Last Surprise is just awesome. Like, this is a song that I think is maybe better watched as a music video than as straight audio, because it's it's the total package in terms of silly Persona dancing. But I still recommend you listen to the original version first, just so your brain won't get pop poisoned by this. That was a long ramble. I apologize.
Yeah, you're fine. I think I agree with you in watching it, because I tried, I was listening to most Persona soundtracks in preparation for this, and I wasn't watching it. I was trying to do work at the same time, and I just could not gel with most of the dancing tracks. But the minute I started watching them, most of them started to click with me, and this is one of the better ones, I think, just because it manages to retain what makes the original so good. And, as revisionist history goes now, Last Surprise is not good anymore, apparently.
What? Come on.
It's because the new battle theme is really good.
Right.
Yeah.
I have heard the new battle theme, and it is good, so, but whatever. That's still dumb revisionist history.
Yeah, it just retains the theme of it while also making it even more upbeat, because, Last Surprise is breaking free and taking down your enemy and stuff, and this is just really, really great. And yeah, I'm surprised I like it as much as I do, but again, maybe it's just because I wasn't watching most of the videos, and I was like, no, you need to start doing it, and that was when they started clicking. I think it was one of the most authentic sounding ones out of the rest. Some of them felt a little bit too far away, I thought, but this is a good one, I would say.
I recently played Persona 3 dancing and Persona 5 dancing back to back earlier this year. I guess it was, let's say, April, May, June is when that happened. And I basically agree, taken on their own, these remixes are weird and may not fit, but if you already know the music from the original game, and then play these with the Persona characters dancing to them, it's sort of that total package that makes me like the Persona dancing games. And I think that 3 and 5 are somehow stripped down, but also a little better than Persona 4 dancing for reasons we don't need to discuss right now. But this is one of the more fitting, better Persona dancing tracks. And let me tell you, I've played through all of them. I've done the research.
Like, I'm sure if I played them, I would love all the music. You know, you get attached to them by the way that you have to play them and match the beat however you have to do it in Persona dancing game.
Now I'm just kind of thinking about how a lot of the Persona movement is really rhythmic, and it's cool to see it tied to movement, like in the dancing games. I'm thinking all the way back to like the Persona 3 opening and the opening movie, and how I think that improved like Mass Destruction for me a lot because of the way they cut it, right? The characters' movements match the beat.
Yeah.
So.
I love a lot of opening themes to games because of the way they're like cut to the music, and like the reason I love Cowboy Bebop so much is because how all the fight sequences are match the music and it's choreographed to the music, and it's the same here. Like these songs work so much better when you see the visual side of things because you can, you know, it imprints on your memory, and yeah, I think you nailed it.
Yeah,
It works well together.
I think Persona in general is very good at enhancing the audio with visuals and context. Like when you we've talked about the context of a lot of these songs, maybe not all of them, but when you sort of know the song's place and what the song is trying to accomplish, then then you like it more. And if you play the game and you can associate visuals or movements to specific songs, you like them more, because Persona has really thoughtful and good audio design and songs that are also good enough to be enjoyed on their own. Part of the reason this episode exists is because Persona music is absolutely worth celebrating, and it's not just the audio, it's the total package. So we know you're listeners, to an audio-only format right now, and these songs are being presented to you in an audio-only format, but they're better with context and visual.
Yeah, I think it's the same for all video game music, isn't it? Like,
yes, it reminds me of music from musicals, because you can attach story or character or movement to them, and they're improved with context.
The Hamilton soundtrack is good on its own, but if you watch the Hamilton show, like all of a sudden you associate it with this story. And that's true of a lot of video games.
Yeah, I do struggle sometimes with soundtracks that I haven't played the game to. I've tried to do it more often, and there are certain, like a lot of Western RPG soundtracks I love, and I've never played them. You associate memories with them, I think. That's the same for everything, really. Yeah.
Now, they say that the sense most strongly attached to memory is smell. So, would the perfect game soundtrack also include, like, a smell-o-vision kind of?
And Chrono Cross definitely smells like a pina colada with a side.
We should do a podcast where we pair games with wines or food.
I'm in.
If you want to do it, make cocktails with video game soundtracks or video games.
But it's funny because we were just talking, Persona's a game that's very closely tied to time, and we were talking about seasonal like flavors and scents earlier too.
God, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, Persona 3, 4, and 5 at least go through most of a calendar year and attach different songs with different times of day and times of year to enhance the context. I think Persona 2, Innocent Sin, this is theoretical on my part, takes place in the winter because the Grand Cross constellation that they're discussing really happened in December 1999, so I think that's around when the game takes place. Again, like, context and story and visuals give you another level of enjoyment to video game soundtracks, and Persona is just really good at it. I feel really very strongly about this. And, I mean, part of the reason we love game music enough to have a podcast about it, which is Rhythm Encounter, and you should subscribe if you haven't already, listener, is because huge fandoms have built up around game music, and I think that fandom would not be the same without the gameplay and story context that we get from it.
Right.
Speaking very broadly about the concept of game music, something I wasn't totally expecting for this podcast.
I mean, the celebration of the return of Rhythm Encounter. It feels
That's the real point of this. We love Persona, we love game music, but Rhythm Encounter is RPG fans' ultimate celebration of game music. It was a podcast that ran from, I think, 2013 or 2014 until stopping in 2017, over multiple different phases of hosts and creatives around it. But Mike Salbato made it one of his missions to revive Rhythm Encounter after the new site design completed. And that site design finished over the summer, and he immediately began planning the Rhythm Encounter Rising from the Ashes
Yep.
right after he finished that. I think all four of us are on early episodes.
Yes.
Yep.
So like maybe not this month, but in the first couple months of new Rhythm Encounter, you will hear their dulcet tones and my horrifying screech.
Oops. Please.
But anyway, those were our 8 tracks for this episode of Retro Encounter, made to celebrate Rhythm Encounter. I know it's confusing. It's I'm not helping by just adding more details. But let's talk about what's going on for Retro Encounter for the rest of the month. We are doing 2 episodes on Persona 2 Innocent Sin starting next week. Alana mentioned that she was playing it, and Alana, you were definitely one of the panelists for that episode. I love Persona 2 Innocent Sin, so I'm really interested to hear those episodes in their finished form, but I'm not going to be recording this time. And coming in October, I mentioned it last week, we're doing one of the most requested games we've ever had for Retro Encounter, at least especially over the past 2 years or so, Phantasy Star 4, The End of the Millennium, the first time we seriously go into Sega stuff since our Dreamcast dedicated episode, literal years ago, Alana.
Yeah, more Reiko Kodama. Woohoo!
Oh, there's a shared design thread between Skies and Phantasy Star 4?
Multiple staff members from Phantasy Star and Panzer Dragoon worked on
Really?
Skies of Arcadia, and Reiko Kodama, the producer of Phantasy Star 4, also produced Skies of Arcadia.
Oh yeah, these are the details that you're going to be here for, because again, I was not a Sega kid growing up, and this is going to be one of my first deep dives into a Sega game. So I'm looking forward to starting that up very soon. We're recording this in August. I'm not. So I got time, but I am going to start up Phantasy Star 4 as soon as I finish my current game project. So, other than Phantasy Star 4, we haven't planned out the rest of October yet. That will come very, very soon, and we will let you know on podcasts as soon as that stuff is prepared. But we are doing a September feature. That is, I'm going to try and have a podcast accompaniment for it, but it hasn't quite come together yet. So please look forward to more RPG fan features and podcasts September, October, and beyond. But listeners, if you want to reach out to the podcast directly, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. You can also comment on our brand new revived message boards, visit our Years in the Making Facebook page, our Instagram page, our Twitter page, our Discord server, our Twitch channel, something streaming every day on Twitch. There are many ways to interact with RPG Fan, and we encourage all of them. There are also 3 other fine podcasts on RPG Fan, Rhythm Encounter, which you've heard me mention 6 times in this podcast already. Please subscribe or resubscribe to that one as soon as you can. At the time of this episode being posted, there should be one brand new 2020 episode of Rhythm Encounter, with more to come every 2 weeks. And there's also Random Encounter, which is also every 2 weeks and about RPG randomness, hosted by Greg Delmage and John O'Logan. And also Phoenix Edge, a weekly podcast mostly focused on current events, hosted by Hat, Eric, and Stan. So please listen to all 4 of RPG Fans podcasts and review all of us on iTunes or Google Play or however you are listening to us. We love feedback and would like to and will react positively to any criticism you're willing to provide. So we aren't quite done presenting music yet, but let's share our social media first for the listeners, starting with you, Hilary.
Sure. Best way to contact me would be through RPG Fan email, hilary@rpgfan.com, or I'm EPFire on Discord.
And Peter.
You can reach me at I Have Fury on Twitter. I'm not on Discord very often, but I'm P-Trees on there. You could also email me, petert@rpgfan.com.
And Alana.
So the best way to get me is Twitter. I am at Alana Hagues on there. I am Alana on Discord. And if you do want to email me, I am alanah@rpgfan.com.
Emailing will not work for me because I barely check emails other than the retro@rpgfan.com email, which I do check every few days at least. But the easiest way to reach me is Twitter. I am at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs at other times. Yes, that's a Persona reference, and yes, I'm proud of you if you've known that for months or years and are not learning about it just now. And on Discord, I am Monsoon Mike, and on I think the new forums are just using our full staff names now, so I'm probably Michael Sollosi on the RPG Fan forums, but I'm not sure. Before I say thank you to the listeners, we have one final song. In Rhythm Encounter, there's always sort of a play-out song that serve as the end credits or the farewell to the episode. And because I'm selfish, I chose it this time. And if you know me, this might have been predictable, because I have a favorite Persona song, and I chose it for this outro. We mentioned how in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, the Change Your Way song is sort of a recurring motif in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. The other Persona 2 song whose motif shows up often is Maya's theme, which is which has multiple versions in Persona 2. There's even a Maya's theme remix that you can play in Persona 3 Fes by telling your navigator to change the background track. But there's a particularly excellent version of Maya's theme that is on the Persona 2 PSP rearranged version, and it's rearranged by Atsushi Kitajo, who was someone that worked on Persona 4 and 5. So it's a Persona 2 song with the sort of supervision of a Persona 4 and 5 artist that really feels like a bridge between the two different generations of Persona, and it's maybe my favorite Persona song ever made. So please enjoy Maya's theme, Atsushi Kitajo rearranged version. Thank you, good night, and good luck.